Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Donut Hole, your place where a couple guys sit around and talk about things. My name's Paul,
And I'm Jason.
and it is February 23rd, 2020. Obviously, we've been taking bigger gaps and things, but that's just life. You've got a lot of things going on. I got a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
A lot of projects. World's a crazy place. So
Yep.
we get these things out as quick as we can and as fast as, or as often as we can, but sometimes life gets in the way.
Yeah, holidays, New Year, it's always something.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess let's just go ahead and dive into today's show. Let's start with domestic politics because that's always fun. Recently, we just had the DNC debate where Bloomberg decided to pop in and show his face and say, "Hey, here I am. Let's debate."
Yep.
So that was entertaining. What are your thoughts on that, Jason?
I don't think anybody likes Mike Bloomberg, from the people I know, leftist right-wingers alike. But, I think he's just trying to buy the election. It was funny, though, how I don't know if you caught it when they asked Bernie, would you take Bloomberg's leftover campaign money if, he dropped out of the race? And Bernie refused to say no. It's just very funny. He's talking about not taking billionaires' money.
Yeah.
But, no, it's just showing me that, you can't necessarily buy your way into the nomination, but you can buy yourself a seat on that debate stage, and you can buy yourself a front runner tag from the media.
You can do that, and I think what we're seeing overall with this is that the DNC is really just a giant dumpster fire.
Yes.
And what we're ultimately going to see is because none of the candidates are going to be able to pull ahead with enough of a lead to keep this from going to a brokered convention. I think what Bloomberg, moreover, is doing, even than buying himself a seat at the, as quote unquote the front runner tag and buying himself into the election, is he's buying himself a seat at the table for picking the nomination, not the nominee.
Yeah. To be in that circle of power. Because as we all know, whether you're a Bernie supporter or not, we know that Bernie's probably going to get screwed again.
Yeah.
He is going to win the majority of delegates the way it's looking now. It's looking like there's no question he's going to, well, not necessarily a overall majority, a plurality. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
He is going to win a plurality of the delegates. And, there's the media's already against him. I am no Bernie fan. I think he's a communist, so don't get me wrong when I'm defending him here, but he's still a citizen of the U.S. and deserves to, partake in this process fairly, but they're gonna dupe him out of it again.
Yeah, just like what happened the last election cycle. We had, Bernie Sanders was winning 16% or 63% of the regular delegates. Hillary's getting 13, but then all of a sudden she pulls super delegates out of her ass. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, Hillary wins with 13% of the overall normal delegates. It's like, what is this garbage?
And I think your theory is a lot correct on here's Bloomberg to save the day because he's not going to win the nomination. But he's throwing enough monkey wrench in there for them to have this brokered convention.
Exactly.
Because without Bloomberg, you may have seen Bernie actually win an actual majority.
Exactly. And I think that's ultimately what it's about is suppressing Bernie Sanders. As like I'm not a big Bernie Sanders fan either. But on the flip side of this, he's not being treated fairly. He wasn't treated fairly in the last election.
Yeah.
And to his defense, what they did was wrong.
Yeah.
And he's getting screwed in this one as well,
Yeah.
which is only going to show you what this political process really is about, especially on the left. I mean, at least with Trump being the weird, goofy, goober outsider thing that he still managed to push through it.
Yeah.
And get the nomination. Whereas in the Democrat side, it's not the case.
Well, I think this is going to finally be the quote-unquote red pill for the young leftist people, the Democrat supporters, because we saw Trump already was the outside the establishment candidate for the right-wingers. The Republican people, especially common folks, were sick of Republicans saying, making these promises, never really doing anything, and basically just going up there and helping big business. Even the common Republican was sick of that, and that's where you see the rise of populism. Well, Bernie is that on the left.
Yeah, he's the populism on the left.
And up till now, you've had these young radical kids still saying, I'm a Democrat, going with the mainstream Democrats such as Hillary, Obama. Now, Obama at the time was not a mainstream Democrat when he first won election, but he is now.
Yeah.
And I think these younger, more radical leftists are starting to see that the Democrat Party is just as messed up as the Republican Party, and Bernie's their outsider candidate.
And I think what you might start to see too, especially as more and more younger voters enter into the voting block, because here we are, the people that were 18 when, well, let's just pretend it's 2016. The people that voted for Barack Obama the first time around that were 18, they were 24 then. Now they're what, 28?
Yep.
So, generally speaking, most people fresh out of high school, they're leaning considerably left due to just public education and indoctrination and all that crap.
Right.
It's usually not till nowadays they hit their 30s that they're like, maybe this isn't working.
Yeah.
So you're getting a whole new set of this younger voting bloc. So basically, this election, it's not going to matter. It's going to go to Trump anyway. But by the time everybody sees this, the people that are 14 right now will be, of course, leaning left and voting in the next one. And you've got all this whole subsequent buildup of other leftist voters. So there is even a possibility that the Democrat Party will just get dropped.
Yeah.
Just be like, boom.
Yes.
And then they'll just be like hardline socialist new uprising party.
But what's scary is what you're going to see is that the Democrat Party is going to be considered centrist once it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
You know, the young kids are going to look at that as the middle of the road party, when in reality they're already radically left.
Yeah.
And then the right wing will respond by going further right.
I don't think so. I think hopefully, knock on wood, if there's any around here, we get this kind of grassy wood product, we'll knock on that. Hopefully what we'll see with that is a rise in kind of a pseudo-libertarian right-wing party that fully branches up to counter the crazy left-wing party.
But unfortunately, that's as far as the Trumpism and the young alt-righters, that is not the way it's going right now.
No, it is like...
It's bordering on right-wing authoritarianism with some of the younger people.
Yeah.
Now, I won't say like the older Trump voters are like that. They seem to be more freedom-minded and just, do what you want. But the younger generation sees it as owning the libs and being authoritarian in their worldview.
Yeah, there's two splits with it. You've got with the younger, like, counterculture right, I guess you would say. There's I won't say alt-right, because there's the alt-right, and then there's the
alt-light,
I guess you would say. So basically,
that's what I've heard it called.
Okay, well, so on one side of it, you have that very authoritative pseudo-Nazi-ish like kind of thing, and it's seemingly small enough at the moment. And you also have, I think, kind of the larger camp of where I kind of fall politically, which is more of the libertarian, just fuck off, leave me alone.
Yeah.
So that is gaining a lot of traction with younger people as well.
Yeah.
Especially because they're like, I don't like this Bernie Sanders crap. I don't like this whole socialism thing. They kind of want to be left alone. But it is more of a counterculture movement on both sides of it. But with especially a rise of a major socialist party, I think what we ultimately might see is, we'll call them the Democratic Socialist Party, will actually rise in name and be its own thing. And then you will end up with the kind of some sort of alt-right party, whether hopefully it's a libertarian alt-right party versus a fascist alt-right party, but unfortunately it'll probably be the latter because they're going extreme. They're going to go extreme in both in bad directions.
Right.
And then in the center, you're going to have probably the Democratic Republicans literally just merge parties and be like, okay, well, it's the only chance for us to be able to get anywhere.
That's actually a big possibility.
Yeah, especially because you're going to try to capture kind of middle-of-the-road Republicans and some of the older Democrats that kind of aren't for all the crazy left-wing, like hard left stuff, but still want just kind of that middle-of-the-road kind of garbage government.
Yeah.
It's the kind of neocon thing.
Right.
So we're talking
the George Bush, Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And even Obama falls into that somewhat. Socially, not so much, but I mean, if you look at his actual policies, Obama's basically a neocon himself.
More or less, yeah.
He's a neocon with throw in some gun control and universal health care, and he's a neocon.
Yeah,
everything else about him.
But I mean, Hillary Clinton's the same way too.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. And that's why they didn't, the media pitched a fit about George Bush, but that's why they didn't nearly give George Bush as much of a hard time as they gave Trump. Now, they gave George Bush a very hard time.
Especially for the time.
But he was still one of their guys.
Close enough.
He had an R behind his name, so he was still the enemy, but he's still one of their guys. He still came from the same pedigree. He still went to the same cocktail parties.
Same college.
Yeah.
He was a Harvard guy, wasn't he?
I believe so.
Yeah.
But yeah, part of the same old elite, which
Yeah.
Trump is too. But Trump used to be their friend and basically went against them all of a sudden. So that's why they really got mad at Trump.
Yeah, because he wasn't going to
he
play
turned
ball.
on them.
He wasn't going to play ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas George Bush, I believe, totally played ball.
Oh, yeah, he totally played
It was
ball.
all a show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas I don't believe with Trump it's a show. I believe Trump basically gave him all the middle finger. But yeah, it's going to be a big problem. And that's what you see Mike Bloomberg is the representation of, is that Democrat-Republican. I mean, hell, he used to be a Republican before he ran for mayor.
Yeah.
And then he switched to Democrat. And the only thing that really makes him a Democrat is gun control and some of his, race baiting type policies that he likes
the race baiting, the gun control, and some of the I think he's somewhat supportive of like healthcare reform.
A little, but he's also made comments that
Against like Elizabeth Warren's plan.
Yeah, he's also made comments like, oh no, people need to keep their private insurance, and if they have insurance with a good company like my company, and bragging about himself type of thing. So in reality, I think economically he's like any other mainstream Republican.
Oh yeah,
or Democrat.
economically, like I wouldn't have a problem with Bloomberg economically too much.
No, because he's a businessman and he's self-made businessman.
Yeah, and you got to give him credit for that.
And you got to give him credit for that, and he knows how this stuff works.
But because I'm very anti-gun control, so if that is the ultimate kicker that's going to kill any candidate for me.
Oh, he's more gun
politically.
control than Virginia right now. I
Yeah.
mean, he's to the point where he had made comments like banning any firearm with a capacity over 3 rounds.
Yeah.
Well, even a modern bolt-action hunting rifle has a little magazine well that holds 5 rounds.
Yeah.
Even that would be banned.
Yeah. And I mean, hell, a revolver, which even the smallest revolvers that I know, like you get like the little compact super carry, like lightweight 38s, they hold 5.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen any less than 5.
I have, but they're like really goofy ones, and I don't even really necessarily call them a revolver either, because they usually are like little goofy derringers with like.
Oh, I've seen.
But they have 4 barrels.
I've seen the.
So
I've also seen the ones with the little square cylinder.
Yeah.
That has 4. Yeah, I have seen
again,
those.
that's
The little
4.
miniature, but it's 4. Right?
Yeah.
It's not 3. I mean, that's even most pump shotguns.
Yeah, most unless you have a plug in them.
Or you're putting 3.5-inch magnums, and there you go. Once again, it's stupid policy. Well, yeah, my shotgun only holds 3 rounds because I put 3.5-inch magnum shells in it. But if you put 2 3/4, you can get 5. You can squeeze 5 in there.
Yeah.
Well,
Or you get the little 2-inch shells.
Oh yeah, the little home defense 2-inchers. Yeah, you can fit even more.
Yeah, I put like 7 or 8 in there.
Yeah, I mean it's just a stupid thing. And yeah, he's more extreme than Virginia. So that is one of his big deals, and I don't know why. I think it must be just kind of a personal crusade for him.
It does seem to be, and it really pisses me off. I'll tell you what, if they start pushing hard gun control, that's when you'll see Paul in the news. He's going to boog.
Well, the funny thing is this is such a non-winning issue with the voters.
Yeah.
Which we're going to probably see backlash in Virginia over it because, I mean, I work in downtown Nashville is a very liberal place. It's not like the rest of Tennessee. Most everybody I work with are very liberal.
Yeah.
Some of them to the point they call themselves Democratic Socialists. They're the AOC types.
Yeah.
But I don't work with a single person who's for gun control.
Wow.
And a lot of these people are from California. I mean, they're not all just from Tennessee and have that rural background. A lot of them do want like stricter background checks and stuff like that, but they're not a single person I know is for banning ARs. Not a single person I know is for banning high capacity magazines. They all think it's nonsense. And some of these people are so liberal, they call themselves Democrat Socialists.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's politically a winning issue. I think both sides of the aisle overwhelmingly want, the Second Amendment and the freedoms it gives us.
Yeah. So, yeah, they push that, I'm going to lose my shit. Like,
Yeah.
no joke. But that's my biggest complaint with Bloomberg. Let's see, where else were we? Oh, yeah, we were talking about the brokerage convention. We already talked a bit about the election coming up. But, yeah, I think pretty much Trump's got this next one in the bag. Not saying, stay home and be apathetical, but...
Yeah, from all the businessmen I hear talking, and that's the unique job I'm in, I get to hear a ton of businessmen coming into the restaurant and talking, and you chat with them at the bar for a minute, and a lot of them, even the ones who are Democrat, are going to vote for Trump. They don't come out and say it, but they basically say it, and because they understand that the way the Democrat Party is going, with the exceptions of maybe a Joe Biden or a Mike Bloomberg, strictly speaking, economy here, that any of the other candidates are going to ruin the economy.
No, they're going to trash the economy. Yeah.
Simply, even if they don't enact their policies, simply because corporations will be scared to death.
That they might.
And corporations have to take preventative measures before these policies go into effect. They have to be prepared for it.
Exactly.
So they're going to start scaling back. They're going to start, being wary of this stuff, and just simply because of the fear of it. If you saw Bernie Sanders become president, you would see the stock market tank instantly. People would be terrified.
Yeah.
Even if it was a Republican Congress and he couldn't get anything done, which that's another argument against Bernie Sanders that young people don't understand, is that he won't be able to get anything done. He can do a lot of executive orders like Trump has done, but an executive order doesn't get you health care. It does not get you free college tuition. It doesn't get you student loan forgiveness. It doesn't get you all these things. And even moderate Democrats, or even slightly left-leaning Democrats, are not going to vote for any Bernie Sanders policies. So I think even Democrats, most Democrats I know, still say Trump's got it. I mean, they even admit that.
Yeah. So Trump's got up for this one, but it's the 2024 election that I'm most worried about. So right now we're looking at about 4.5, 5 years of decent enough economic stability, possibly. But then I think things are going to hit the fan come 2024.
Yeah.
That's what I'm most fearful for.
Yeah, the way I'm calling this happening is we're going to have a slight downturn that I think is going to start this year.
Yeah, I do too.
And I don't think it's going to be a major recession. I think it's just going to be a correction back to kind of like we're a little overcharged right now.
Yeah.
Kind of calm it down a little bit. It's going to hurt Trump a little, but I think he'll still get reelected. And I think his second term is not going to be nearly as economically successful as his first, but it's still going to be okay. America's going to be okay.
It'll be kind of like back when Obama was in.
Yeah, but it's going to start trailing off, which is going to lead a lot of these swing voters to vote Democrat. And like you said when we were talking earlier, the American people, well, we gave them a chance for 8 years. Let's go the opposite way. I mean,
that's the American way, it seems.
Yeah. And then what's going to happen is things are going to get more radical, as we've seen. I mean, how much more radical you thought, oh, Barack Obama's radical. Now he looks like a centrist.
Yeah, he does.
And it is going to go with these Democrat socialists are going to be the ones taking control of the young people's minds.
I mean, how old is AOC right now? She's what, 28?
28, 29, something like that, yeah.
So, okay, 29. She's going to be what, 34? Okay, so this year she'll be 30. Oh, what do you know? She can run in 2024.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
There's the media left.
And if not,
I mean, Sanders will be dead by then.
At least it'll be 2028. I mean, if she's like off by a year or two, it'll be 2028. So, I mean, yeah, you're coming up in the next less than 10 years.
Yeah. So she's kind of the media darling of the left. She'll run for president. And, let's face it, attractive people usually get, pretty far.
Yeah, in this age of television.
Looking, so
yeah, in this age of television, definitely.
I hate her policies, but she's not terrible looking, so
No, and she is very good at appealing to young people's emotions.
Exactly, which is her voting.
I'm not going to say she's a great orator, but what she is good at is appealing to people's emotions.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, I hate to say it because I've come to the realization lately that after this current era of prosperity is over with, and it will be, it always ends. People act like it never will, but it does.
Yeah.
You have and I won't say all millennials, because I do see that older millennials, older than 34, 33, are starting to kind of be a little more.
Thank you.
Common sense. Well, they're growing up. They're having families. They're having kids.
Yeah.
They're not quite as radical, even if they're still a little bit left leaning. They're not radical. But the younger millennials and the generation coming up now are so radical, and it takes them they're basically have delayed adolescence.
Yeah.
They're getting older and older before they have families, before they have kids, before they have real responsibilities. I think that we're going to have to see some sort of leftist government put in place for them to learn their lesson.
Why possibly? Yeah, I mean, talk about delayed adolescence. I mean, now you've got to be 21 years old to buy a pack of smokes.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
Well, I mean, I hear these young people at work talk about, why would I have kids and get married? And they're 30. And well, first of all, it's if you think it's wasting your life, you should probably never consider having kids, because you'd think. But anyways, if they're thinking that, they still need to live their best life and all this goofy, modern notions, and they're 30, well, guys, you got to start growing up sometimes. If this is what you want out of life, 30, you're an adult, you're there. But they don't see it that way. They see it like, oh, well, maybe I'll get married and have kids at 40.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
I did it at, like 32, 31, and it's damn near killing me.
Yeah. But it's just that delayed adolescence thing. and they're going to have to learn because they're ignorance of history. And the propaganda that you've had on the news media of the Soviet Union. Oh, well, that was communism. We're talking about socialism.
Something else kind of tying into that with the late adolescence and people not having families. Come to find out, doing a little bit of research and talking to some people about this, it appears as if, because we obviously know that most women in the world, or in the U.S. at least, domestically, are on birth control, right? As a regular thing, like all the time. Come to find out, not only does this like add to weight gain, but it also zaps sex drives. Come to find out.
Well, it would make sense when you're screwing with the hormones that are,
Yeah.
the natural procreation drive. That it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, but so apparently it's weight gain and zapping sex drives like really badly.
Yeah.
So that's another little
So
fun.
rubbers are best, folks.
Yeah, rubbers seem to be the thing, or yeah, unfortunately.
Or if you're in a stable relationship, just pull it out.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, come to find it, that's the case. I mean, apparently, like they can be used in like periodically. Mm-hmm. It's like, so I guess you can like hit the rubbers for a little bit, and then 6 months later throw in the pill for 4 or 5 months just for to go nuts, and then off again on like kind of like, okay, it's your quarter to be on birth control. Okay, it's my quarter to be on.
Right.
You're gonna have to switch it out. Come to find,
I actually dated a girl that refused to get on birth control because she had tried it and
fucked her up.
oh, bad. Yeah, she gained like 20 pounds. She said she was just depressed, felt like crap. She stopped taking them, felt better instantly, dropped the weight. So I mean, that's very anecdotal, but she discovered real quick that it was not good for her body.
Yeah, I've noticed it too, kind of in my relationship. So I might be having this conversation either tonight or later next week. Wish me luck.
Yeah.
Granted, I don't want more kids, but I also,
There's other precautions you can take.
yeah, there's other things we can figure out.
Yeah.
'Cause after her pregnancy, she basically got on it like a 5-year one, and baby weight never really came off. It's like, what the fuck? This ain't so good for me.
Oh, man.
Might be a little personal, but whatever.
Well, like you said, I'd be normally worried about YouTube, but we don't have that many viewers. So,
Yeah, we've got like,
you know.
what, 2 maybe?
Yeah.
Fuck it. That said, we probably really do need to throw up a website and start actually just
Yeah.
releasing this as audio only,
Yeah.
because this is
Well,
YouTube isn't
that
helping at all. I'm sure their algorithm is squashing everything that we say.
oh, I'm sure if there's anything, yeah, and I'm sure if the people that are watching us happen to be watching, say, Ben Shapiro as well, or some of these other folks, even Joe Rogan's considered part of the bad now,
Everybody is. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you say anything that's,
And Joe Rogan to me is a raving leftist. I like the guy.
yeah, he's like a left center. But he's,
But
he's
I mean,
entertaining
he
enough.
believes in like universal health care, pay off people's college debt. Like he he endorsed Bernie Sanders. I mean, he is very left.
Yeah.
I like the guy. I don't think he's a
Bad
a
person,
lunatic or
yeah.
anything, but I like listening to him. But apparently, he is considered, too far right.
Yeah.
Which he's not right wing at all. He just happens to be honest and not all about identity politics.
Fuck, I mean, I'll take a leftist who's honest over, identity politics or shit
Yeah.
any day of the week.
And I think you're starting to see this with the older leftists. Even Bill Maher seems to make sense nowadays from time to time, and he is which a lot of it's an act because he is he made his whole career on being an inflammatory comedian. I listened to him on Joe Rogan, which is why I was
Change
thinking
your
about
opinion
this.
a little bit, yeah.
The older leftists are starting to see that, this identity politics, intersectional bullshit is really,
It's
PC.
bad. It's bad.
Like they're really pushing back against it. They're still leftists. They still want leftist policies, but the social aspects of it, they are starting to agree is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, I mean, we're getting to a point where there's the masculization of women and the feminization of men to kind of create this middle of the road homogenized nothing.
Yeah.
And it's like, play to your strengths.
Yeah.
Women have strengths. I don't know why that we should even be having this conversation. Women have strengths. So a lot of things that women can do that are amazing.
And I don't understand this notion that it's so important for a woman to be able to, go out in the backyard and build a deck, just as well as a man because they can't. They don't have as much musculature, you know. I mean, they can still do these things.
They can help out too, you know.
But they can't do it as well as a man.
Yeah.
It's same as like rearing children. Yes, a man can absolutely take care of his children. They have for millennia. But a woman is better at it. A woman is more nurturing, more caring, just naturally.
I can be kind of a hard ass, yeah.
Right. And to say that though is, oh my God, like, you know. And that's giving them a compliment. But even giving them a compliment saying that they're different from men is bad.
Yeah, like I said, play to your strengths. I mean, everybody has strengths. Find what you're good at. Find what you do. I mean, why did we have to be this middle-of-the-road, homogenized, mediocre nothing?
Well,
why do we have to be the Applebee's of people?
Yeah, it's just like every business I've ever worked in, mostly restaurants, I've worked in some other things. As a business, if you don't choose an identity, you're just a nothing and you end up losing business and going under.
Yeah, or being Applebee's and they're going under too.
Right, exactly. Or just being a mediocre, you know, that nobody really cares for. You have to choose an identity and you have to do that as best as you can. You can't be everything to everyone.
No.
And I think that's kind of the feminization thing of, you know, the feminized society is trying to be everything to everyone. Is, hey, look, no matter who you are, you can do anything you choose. Well, yes, you can, but you may not do it as well.
Yeah.
And that's where people get bogged down in it, is they say, well, look, yeah, this person could do that. Yes, they could. But I don't ever foresee a female lifting as heavy of weights as a male. That's just a physical difference. There's not insulting anyone. That's just a truth.
Now, granted, there are a few out there that can definitely probably pick both of us up as bench presses.
Oh, I mean, there's a few that'll kick our asses and lift more weight than us. But if you compare them with their male counterparts who are at the top
doing
of
the
their
same
game,
thing like the bodybuilder types.
right? Yeah, the male is going to far surpass them physically.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, you look at nature, and that's what really drives me nuts about the new leftist. Because the old leftist said, reject God, but we will follow nature as a guide. Which nature kind of is God. I mean, because you don't have to...
More or less.
You know, I mean, that's where paganism comes from. You know, it's... The religion thing is like looking at the natural world and understanding there's an order to things. You know, different religions describe it to different gods or ascribe it to nature or whatever.
But
it's just basically recognizing the natural order.
Yeah.
You can say from a Muslim perspective, a Christian perspective, a pagan perspective, a Wiccan perspective, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
But it's understanding the natural order. And the new leftists went from, okay, we don't have to have Christianity to understand the natural order, to there is no natural order.
Yeah.
It's gotten so humanist that we can't even follow the laws of nature anymore, or even acknowledge that they're real.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, as humans, we go against the laws of nature a lot of times, and we do it a lot.
And sometimes we can't do it because we can't, just simply because we can.
Right.
You know, people flying in airplanes goes kind of a little bit against the laws of nature. And we do it because we can.
Yeah.
And it's convenient and it has a lot of
right.
benefits for us.
But we also understand
that if that plane fucks up, we're going to hit the
right,
ground
you're
really
gonna,
hard.
Right, the law of gravity is still going to, yeah, it still takes effect.
You can't pull it over if it breaks down.
We are not changing the law of gravity. We're just finding a way around it.
Exactly.
And that's kind of with everything. It's like the transgender debate. Yes, a man can dress in a dress. Absolutely. It's still a man. No matter how many surgeries, it is still a man. You cannot get around the chromosomes.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't get around it.
I mean, could be a very pretty man, too. Like, drop dead gorgeous, even.
It just drives me nuts that, you know, people think, and I've posed this to leftists, like on the transgender debate, well, why do you have to call them a woman? Like, can't they just behave how they want to behave? And you can accept them for that. They don't have to actually be a woman. They can just behave however they want, and you just accept that. But that's not good enough for them. They have to change nature itself. But at the end of the day, you're not.
And I come at this from a slightly different perspective. Obviously, father, underwent going gender reassignment surgery when I was a kid. Oh, newsflash! Any of you guys didn't know that. So, I mean, I come from a perspective of if somebody's going to do this, and especially if they're going to undergo the full Monty, go the full range, get the surgery and everything. Yes, obviously, genetically, chromosomally, things are still what they are. But if they've put in enough effort to make the change and this makes them happy, I'm going to be a decent enough person to use, okay, you want me to say, she? That's cool.
Well, and
like, I'm fine with that.
And it's pretty.
But I'm not going to say you should be entitled to, like, maternity leave.
or tampons in male restrooms,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
That's like a
Or
what the
and
fuck?
also most people, and you can go back to the 70s and 80s. If most people saw you in a room and you were dressed like a woman and you looked enough like you were trying to present I mean, as long as you didn't have a beard like mine,
Yeah.
they're gonna call you she and her, even if they don't know it, even if they're whispering, going, "I think that may be a man." They're not gonna say that to your face. I mean, you can go back to way back when, and they would think maybe it's just a woman that kind of looks like a square jaw, or.
Yeah.
This whole like, oh, you called me by the wrong pronoun when it's obviously a dude in a wig, because you see that a lot more with the modern transvestites or transgenders rather than you did back in the day. It's just guys who say I'm a woman now and put on a wig and a blouse and just look
skirt,
like a
yeah.
dude and have a goatee. That's insane. But once again, it's laws of nature. I mean, most people are just calling things as they see them.
Yeah.
They're not trying to be cruel. They're not trying to. And then where people are getting militantly against this stuff is when you tell them, oh, no, your observations are wrong. What you see in the world around you is wrong. You have to ask people's gender. You have to ask their preferred pronouns.
No, I'm gonna
And
go.
that's when people get upset.
I'm gonna go with whatever the appearance is.
Yeah, that's what I would do. I mean,
and-
with a complete stranger, if they appear to be a woman, I'm going to say yes, ma'am. And if they appear to be a man, I'm going to say yes, sir. That's as simple as that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go off that assumption. And if you corrected me and say, "Oh, well, actually," I'm like, "Okay, well, sorry, my bad."
Right. I'm
going to be a decent enough person to try to accommodate
yeah.
the he or she. Now, you start throwing in these goofy pronouns like
Yeah, I'm probably not going to participate in
fuck a
that.
load of that.
Right. I'm not going to participate in that.
pick one and go with it. I'll
But yeah, if you
be
say call
kind
me
enough.
she, sure, fine, whatever.
It's cool.
And everybody should try to be nice in public life,
Exactly.
regardless of whether you agree with people or not. We all have to put up with a lot of things. Now in private life, that's a different story. But in public life, yes, we should all be kind.
Yeah.
But it still goes back to you still cannot fundamentally change biology.
No.
We can pretend all we want, but until you can transfer a person's consciousness into another body with different DNA, it's never going to happen. And that's this whole denial of nature with the new left is it's the socialist communist thing. It's the complete denial of human nature. Complete denial that people are going to become corrupt, people are going to become greedy, and capitalism is the best system because it kind of takes that into effect already. And at least capitalism puts in the consent part. You consent to work for the billionaire. And that's what a lot of these kids are missing in their minds, that they're disconnect. They don't understand. You can go get another job. You can choose not to work. Now, you're not going to have any money, but you can better yourself and choose to go work for this other guy.
Yeah. And you can save your money, and who knows, maybe eventually you'll start something
Yeah.
and be that guy.
Yeah. But in a socialist system,
Good
you
luck.
have no choice.
Yeah.
You are what you are. You are what the state assigned you. You went to the schools the state assigned you. Now, there's benefits to that as well because some of the smarter people are going to wind up where they need to be rather than, working at McDonald's. But there's a lot of negative too because just your common man, he's going to go to school. They're going to say, well, you're not smart. You're not dumb. You're just kind of average. So you get to go work in the tuna canning factory. Oh, well, you're a little bit smarter than average. We'll make you the line supervisor where you check the cleanliness of the machines. And you get 3 shots more vodka per night.
Yeah. That's where you're at.
And that's that. And there is no choice. And I think that's what a lot of young people don't understand about these overarching government systems is you take consent out of it. When you're buying something, people complain about how expensive things are. Well, you're consenting to buy it from them. Go find it from somebody else.
That's it. In the socialist system, you're the tuna can supervisor. You get really sick of tuna, you might be able to quit your job. And then you're going to go to the dog food canning facility because that's what you do. Or you might even luck out and you'll get the creme de la creme job and you get to be the door screwer honor supervisor at the automotive factory.
Oh, wow, that's far better than tuna. You don't have to smell that smell all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get to supervise them putting the door on the same make and model of car that they released 20 years ago that they're still producing today.
Yeah. And that's what young people don't understand is that at least in our system, the people working at the tuna factory chose to. They can sit and moan and bitch all they want about working at the tuna factory, but you can quit tomorrow. You can go move to places with when the fracking boom was going on in the Dakotas, you could have moved to the Dakotas and got a really good paying job.
Yeah.
Now, you weren't willing to. That's on you. But when you do the socialist system, that's on the state.
Yeah. And God knows they're looking forward to the 2020 model of the Ford Fiesta in 2035.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's what it's going to be. But it'll be called the 2035 Ford Fiesta, but it'll still be the 2020 everything. Because that's what happened with the Ladas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they produced, like, since, like, the early 60s, it was the exact same, and it was a copy of a Fiat, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think it was a Fiat. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a Russian copy of the Fiat from the 60s. They produced all the way up until, like, 98?
Yeah, even after the Soviet Union fell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, because they're just churning out the same damn car. The exact same car. Like, nothing changed.
Yeah, no innovation.
None.
Well, and what's the motivation for innovation when there's no personal gain?
They had a backlog on cars. Like, you put your order in for a car, you'll get it 10 years from now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what's the motivation? What's the motivation to make more cars? As long as the country's functioning at a base level. You know,
Hey, it produces less greenhouse emissions, so it's
yeah.
good.
Yeah, it's like Ronald Reagan's quote when he had his radio show. You know, the one about how socialism... no, I was thinking a different one.
Okay.
How socialism can guarantee you, you know, a pot of bacon and beans and to treat you when you're ill. Basically, everything a prisoner's guaranteed. But what it doesn't, and I'm obviously paraphrasing here, but what it doesn't take into effect is people's dreams. And he was right, the spirit of people. And he's like, yes, and sometimes people do dream of a yacht.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, there was a couple other good ones. I think one of them was something to the extent of asking, the electrician was asking, it's like, hey, I'm not going to be there for a year. You know, come out and fix this, or something to that extent. And then the guy asked, okay, a year, that's fine, morning or night. And then the electrician's like, what does it matter? You know, it's a year out. He's like, well, the plumber's coming in the morning.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was kind of a funny one. And there was another one that was kind of funny. The American was talking to the Russian guy, and I'm kind of paraphrasing these as well, but more or less getting the gist across. The Russian guy and the American guy were talking, and they were talking about comparing their systems and stuff. And the American guy's like, yeah, well, you know, I can say that the American president's a piece of crap. It's like, can you do that? He's like, yes, I can. You know, I can, because he said I can walk right into the White House and say, yeah, Mr. President, you're a piece of crap. And the Russian guy's like, yes, I can do this too. I can walk right into the Kremlin and then I talk to the premier and I say, the American president is a piece of crap. something
Yeah,
to that effect.
yeah, it's so true.
But say it about the American president, the Russian premier.
Well, it's the old adage too of you want to know who your true enemies are, the ones you can't speak against.
Yeah.
And in a socialist system, that's the government.
Yeah, and even in a not socialist system that is quasi-capitalist, but very totalitarian, which segues us very nicely into our next thing. But I think we're going to take a quick break, and we'll get to you guys back right after the commercials. Alrighty, guys, we are back from the break. Just lost the first half of the show on video, which is fan-fucking-tastic. I'm really getting sick of this. All the more reason why I think we should change platforms and go straight to podcast, like actual podcast audio only, because this shit's pissing me off.
And we can still publish to YouTube, and podcasts do that, and you just put your logo up there and post it. I know.
Yeah, I think I might start doing that instead
you
of trying to fill it with memes and shit, because that's so goddamn time consuming.
Yeah.
Because I did that on one of the episodes. Where
There's
we lost
several
it.
good podcasts that do that a lot of people listen to.
Slap their logo on it, huh?
Yeah, just because it's just another outlet, and the people that are used to listening on YouTube can still have the availability. They don't have to change platforms, and you still have it up there.
Yeah, I think that might be what we do for YouTube from moving from here on forward. That way we don't have to deal with this shit, because this is getting old. I might just get like the GoPro out from now on and just plug that in and have it there just for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pissing me off.
And maybe we may save video shows for something like where we went to the range or,
Yeah.
Because if I do end up moving out to some land in the next year or so, we will start doing some outside things.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, that's that. But right before we were talking about socialism and how you don't have the choice, and it's all boils down to who you get to criticize. Well, that's not only just a thing of a socialist, but just totalitarian regimes in general. Speaking of which, let's switch gears and talk about the coronavirus. COVID-19, I think the CDC is now calling it. Oh, some information I got today. Actually, I didn't write this down in show prep, but this is interesting. Apparently, the U.S. our CDC is only so to be even tested for coronavirus here now. You either have to have recently went to China or been in contact with a known person to have had it. Otherwise, they're not doing any person-to-person possible testing here in the U.S.
Wow.
They're not even.
Now, the good thing about that shows me that that the fatality rate is not that high in the U.S. Because otherwise they would. But still, you'd
Now,
think.
a lot of goofy things have been coming out from the CDC that are counterintuitive. Speaking of counterintuitive things, so currently, just looked it up before we started the show. Global infection rate, including the official numbers from China, which I put those in quotation marks, are around 76,000. So we also know that in China currently, because I've also been talking to a lot of people in China on Chinese social media, all the factories are basically still closed. Everybody's out of work. Schools aren't in session. We're about 3 weeks out from Chinese New Year, maybe a little longer at this point. And nothing's happening. Like, there's no economic activity. Yet we're seeing an increased tick up in the stock market. This is not something that really makes sense when you really put the pieces of the puzzles together. Because you have companies like Apple that are going to they're reporting that their projected output is going to be like 25% lower than it normally is due to supply chain disruptions. Some of the Hyundai plants have shut down due to lack of availability of parts. Fiat Chrysler, I think, did the same thing in Europe recently. I think it was them. It might have been another auto company, but I think it was Fiat Chrysler. A lot of companies. I think there was a motorcycle company as well, a Japanese motorcycle company that they don't have parts, so they're sitting there twiddling their thumbs right now. A lot of companies are just sitting here like, oh yeah, we can't make anything right now, and yet the stock market's ticking up. Makes absolutely no sense other than potentially just governments around the world throwing money into it to make people not panic.
Yeah, and I think it's also because we were discussing earlier. I think especially in the U.S. consumer is just continuing to spend every dime they have.
Yeah.
We kind of have a situation right now where people are drunk on the good times. And we were talking about demographics. Of course, your boomers spend all their money because they're retiring, and that's what retired people have always done. There's nothing new there. But you have a whole young generation of kids with this new, buying experiences, don't own anything type economy.
Before, yeah.
These companies are able to siphon off all the money from those people because those people will spend every dime they have. If they have $10 left over at the end of the week, they're going to go out to the Cinnabon and buy one. They're going to go get an extra Starbucks. And that's just the modern American culture. And while that does benefit the economy in the long run, that's really not great.
Not good for society as a whole.
Yeah. Because when the economy does go down, it's going to be bad.
Yeah. So anyway, like I said, the economy's up. Yeah, part of it might be American spending, but even so with companies, I mean, this is stocks and companies. And yeah, people are buying shit, but at the same time, people are investing money into these companies, and these companies are like, yo, we can't make shit.
Right, but people keep buying the stocks.
Why?
Yeah, I don't...
Because millennials are not usually the type to go out and buy a ton of stocks.
No,
I would say.
No.
So it just doesn't make sense.
It's because the investors are seeing that the stock market is performing right now, so they're more likely to stay in it rather than sell off.
But then you still have news stories of, Hyundai stock is still up. And they're like, we can't build anything right now. We're shutting down production.
I don't completely understand how the modern stock market works because, when you learned it in civics class, it was kind of like, well, if the company makes a great profit, the stock goes up. Well, I remember a few years back, they were talking about how Walmart stock kind of tanked a little bit because they didn't meet their projections. And I'm thinking, well, but that article went on to say they still made record profits, but it just wasn't quite as much as they expected, so their stock went down. So I think we're in a situation nowadays where the stock market is kind of disconnected with reality a little bit. I think a lot of it is controlled by creative accounting. And as with anything, as we've seen in modern computer systems, if you game the algorithm, And I think that maybe that's a lot.
But even so, you just said Walmart stock tanked, not because they didn't make a profit, but because they didn't meet projections. Apple's already come out and said, we're not going to meet projections.
Yeah.
And their stock's still up.
Well, but when
That makes no
when the
sense.
quarterly report comes out, it will tank.
We'll see.
Unless it's recovered by then.
Unless
And I think that's a lot of it, is they're betting on that they can make it to the quarterly projection and recoup their losses.
We'll see. But I got a funny feeling that there's something that might be bigger going on with this, and that things are getting artificially pumped. Call me a conspiracy theorist. I think things might be getting artificially pumped.
I agree with you.
To not cause a panic amongst people.
Yeah, I agree with you. Why do you think? I mean, we are in this prosperous economy, and interest rates are still the lowest they've ever been.
Yeah.
There's a reason why. And a lot of it has to do with modern culture. Of what we were just talking about is
People aren't buying shit. Like
nobody
houses.
buys anything. Nobody invests anything. Just your average Joe.
On important things. Just
Yeah.
bullshit, frivolous
Right.
stuff. Yeah.
Nobody saves anything. Every bit of money they have goes to the corporations, which corporations absolutely love. So, yeah, I think a lot of it is just artificially pumping it up and keeping that consumer dollar coming in. Because if they can keep their consumer confidence high, they keep that consumer dollar coming in, and they can just prolong it for a little bit longer. But reality will catch up to everyone. Yeah. I mean, at some point. When you read articles saying that your average American doesn't have $1,000 in the bank, that's disturbing. And I mean, they're talking about people who make $70,000 a year. They may have $1,000 in the bank when they first get their paycheck, but a week later it's gone.
Yeah.
So it's a really scary situation.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm definitely much lower than 70,000 a year, and I think I got like 1,500, 2,000 set aside just in case.
Yeah, I mean, it's, if you have
that's
a car
low for me.
repair,
I'm kind of like freaked out. It's like things are not, money's a little tight at the moment, so it's like.
Well, I see a lot of people that make good money. Being a landlord, because I see these people's income. I see people make a lot more money than I do. That are one breakdown on their car away from having to move back in with a relative.
That's ridiculous.
Because that's just how Americans live now. It used to be considered a virtue to save, a virtue to be frugal, own a home, own real tangible things that can be used, even if it's not an investment, a tangible thing that can be sold for real money. But even a car, not a good investment. It goes down in value. But if you get really desperate, you can sell your car and get a few $1,000.
Yeah.
But you got this modern attitude of own nothing but have access to everything. Well, that's all good and fine, but when you have no money, you have no car to sell. When you're renting an apartment, you have no real estate to sell. You're already at rock bottom. And living your life never getting above rock bottom, we go back to the socialism. This is where you're going to get a whole generation of kids pushing for socialism, because the way they think about it is not that it controls every aspect of my life. They think about it like, if I get healthcare and housing and education for free or cheap, then the rest of my money can just be used for frivolous things. That's their thought process. That's these people who are voting for Bernie Sanders.
I think you're actually kind of finding that maybe the new brand of socialism will actually be like that, where it won't necessarily be as like cold and dismal, but it might be, I don't own anything. I live in this regular apartment, whatever, but the little bit of money that I do get to keep from my job, I do get to spend on all these bullshit, seemingly luxury-ish garbage.
Yeah. There's actually a guy that wrote an article said we need luxury communism. And that's what he was describing.
And that's, basically, that's exactly what this is sounding like. What we're going to end up having is luxury communism.
But essentially what you're doing there, because you're still going to have private corporations produce the luxury goods, because the government's never going to do it efficiently enough, and it's never going to, and the people will, and I think even socialist governments would understand that. So what you're going to get is a situation where your life is controlled by the socialist government, but you've still got corporations, I think we've discussed this before, that are getting mega rich off the luxuries.
Yeah.
So you really get the worst of both systems.
Yeah, it is the worst of both systems. Yeah, in a lot of ways it is. So yeah, I think that could be something we might see in the future, and that will be scary.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's bounce back to the coronavirus thing. Obviously, there's new cases now. Obviously there was the whole debacle with the Japanese cruise ships. They quarantined those, and then more and more people on it was basically like just infection floating island. So that was not good. There's been obviously a lot of repatriation and stuff. Actually, in the last podcast, I believe we talked about those unofficial numbers the leaked numbers back then. That was like 15,000 people. Were obviously up as an overall thing over 76,000 people that have been infected with this now globally, and that's including the low Chinese numbers. I would be, because we talked earlier a little bit about just how China reports this stuff and how what they do with the flu, right? So everyone likes to compare this crap to the flu. It's not. It's actually way more of a big problem than the flu is for a lot of reasons. But looking at the numbers, they say about 30 to 60,000 people a year die of the flu in the U.S.
Right.
So we ran the numbers on that, and just adjusting for population, the Chinese numbers don't make sense because they report between like 40 and 60 or so people, not 1,000 people. Like I said on the microphone again, people die of the flu in China every year. 40 to 60 people. They have like 1.7 billion people.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I'd be willing to say Liechtenstein has more than 60 people die of the flu every year.
Yeah. So that makes no sense. But a lot of it boils down to, they have the flu, but they died from complications of the flu, and that complication was pneumonia. That's what gets written on their on their death certificate. So they didn't die of the flu; they died of pneumonia. So this is what you see in China. Forget the fact that this is a big problem that I think the government's trying to cover up. I would suspect just breaking the numbers down on the absolute lowest estimate possible, using the algorithm of judging off of flu to the United States, flu to China. It is very, and these numbers are still way retardedly low. But we came up with a number of 280,000 people infected.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's ridiculous. I think you should take the 70,000 people or so in China that have this thing and just drop 2 zeros on it, and you're probably a little closer with the anecdotal evidences that has come out from the crematoriums running 24/7, from just the way everything is, all the underground anecdotal reports that are coming out of China. There's no way that this is what it is. And unfortunately, a lot of Chinese people, especially that are not in the big, majorly afflicted areas like Wuhan, they are, obviously, the government said, don't go to work, stay home. A lot of people are not in, the economic engine of China is shut down. But a lot of people are like, oh, this is a precaution thing. We're fine here. Meanwhile, that they don't realize that in their city, a bunch of people are dying from this crap.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's what we're at. And then there's also I think we talked a bit about the issue with some of the receptors from that's causing a bit of a problem now with the disease, where people that were once infected, they get better. They now have the antibodies in their system, and then when they get infected a second time, not quite sure if it's a mutated strain of this now because it's been out for a little bit, and it is an RNA virus, which means it's prone to mutations. But nonetheless, there's certain antibodies in people's systems from this thing. And what's happening, it was the same thing that happened with the SARS virus with their vaccines, which is why they never rolled a vaccine out with SARS. Is what usually ended up happening is once the antibodies are in the system, they catch the virus again, and the body freaks out with the immune response and just goes haywire in the body and starts actually attacking the body itself and then thusly killing the person. Or definitely increasing the risk of that.
Yeah.
So, and I think they're starting to see that now with the reinfection cases of the coronavirus.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. Definitely not good. And then also, we know for certain that there is a level 4 biocontainment lab in Wuhan. And right across, literally like a few hundred feet away from that wet market that everybody thinks that this thing came out of, is a Chinese version of the CDC.
Yeah.
We know that the United States does some dodgy stuff, and we know recently in the news that Chinese nationals have been, and a couple of American citizens too, and a couple of Canadian citizens, because it happened in Canada as well, have been all arrested for screwing around with stuff from biolabs. I am kind of the mindset, and this is a theory nonetheless, but I'm pretty much of the mindset that this was a weaponized thing that kind of got out and shouldn't have.
Well, and I don't know if this is a rumor, and tell me if you've heard the same thing, but I've heard that this virus is even more likely to attack Asian people.
I've heard this rumor, and this is
And I don't know
actually
if this is true or not.
yeah, this is
Because I think that's where they're trying to say it's a bioweapon that was created against the Chinese, you know.
no, and that's not exactly true. I've heard the same thing, and that's been has finally been debunked.
Okay.
But what is a big deal, as we all know that, it's been a decade since I've been in China. Things are changing a little bit, but not that much. I would say about 60% of guys in China smoke. Mm-hmm. And we also know that guys in China are getting this thing at a much higher rate. That's already been a proven fact. More guys are getting this than women.
Yeah.
This virus is, it does target and does give you
Yeah.
pneumonia and crap. And guess who's primarily dying in China? Asian men.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everyone's like, oh, it's wreaking havoc in Asia. Well, no, it's wreaking havoc against Asian men who smoke.
Yeah.
That's the big problem
Yeah.
with it. And then, of course, now recently we're starting to see it in Iran. We also know that that's kind of a Middle Eastern thing as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, lots of
So-
smoking. I don't know about Iran, but when I was in Saudi Arabia, I would say at least 60, 70%.
Yeah, China's the same way.
If not even a little higher, of Arabic men smoke.
So it's going to wreak havoc over there. We've got a case in Lebanon and in Jordan, I believe now. And there's also I believe cases now in Italy as well. I think we've got a death now in Italy. So this thing is starting to branch out, and it's even if somehow some miracle happens and we don't end up with the virus here hardcore in the United States, nonetheless, we are going to see some supply line disruptions. I think that's gonna
Yeah,
be a big
yeah. I
problem.
mean, and especially with it not just affecting China, starting to affect the rest of the world outside of the U.S. is going to wreak havoc.
Yeah, because there's definitely non-Asian deaths at this point. So
Yeah.
that whole only Asian people get it, that myth's been debunked.
And the reinfection is what you were telling me about that, and I didn't realize that is the scary part about it, because if it has as the advertised 2 to 3% death rate, which is high, but it's not apocalyptic. You say, okay, well, it becomes a worldwide pandemic, but people get it, their immune response happens, then it just goes back to normal. You have 2 or 3% die, but everybody else is basically immune now. Like you are after you get the flu. You're not immune for life, but you're immune to that particular strain of flu for a few years.
Yeah.
But apparently it seems like that's not happening. So that makes it even more scary. So saying, hey, you got it, you're probably good for the next few years. That's not necessarily the case.
No,
you get reinfected immediately.
Yeah, you get reinfected immediately, and the second bout is definitely going to be worse than the first.
Yeah.
So that's not good.
Yeah. And, that is the really scary part, because if it can just keep going and keep going and keep going, that means it's going to take human intervention to stop it. Whereas a lot of diseases, because of the human immune response, will burn themselves out. That's why you had these huge flu pandemics centuries ago, and they would eventually burn themselves out. It's not like that just continued on in perpetuity.
Yeah, the bubonic plague didn't continue on in perpetuity.
Right.
It eventually fizzled out.
Right. And Ebola, it's not immune response with Ebola. It happens to kill people so fast that if you even just get a little bit of a quarantine going on, it will burn itself out. But if you got something like the coronavirus, which is actually the smaller death rate, makes it more scary because it has more time to spread.
Yeah, and then the long incubation period with this
Yes.
thing. Originally, they thought it was a week. Then they thought it was 14 days. Now they're saying it can take up to 21 days.
Yeah.
You're passing this crap around, feeling fine as it all can be. You're sick with it. Don't realize it. And you're just doing your daily thing. Think of how many people you bump into in 21 days.
Yeah.
You're spreading the virus.
Yeah.
I mean, good God.
Yeah.
And God forbid you're a super spreader, because those exist too, where people just, oddly enough, just the way their body works, it just like really pushes it out there more so than it does with normal people. I mean,
it's a scary thing, and honestly, if you did want to design a bioweapon, first of all, you don't want the death rate that high like Ebola, because it burns itself out.
Yeah.
Just simple quarantine will burn it out; it'll disappear. You take care of sanitation, and quarantine will take care of it. But if you have this long incubation time combined with a relatively low death rate, still much higher than a common cold or flu,
yeah.
that's kind of sounds like a bioweapon.
Yeah.
And then the reinfection. So that's exactly what you would want. if you're trying to eliminate large swaths of the population.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what this was a bioweapon that was stolen, probably not with the anecdote or the any kind of way to, vaccine or anything to be able to deal with it yet. I'm sure that probably exists, but no one's going to be forthcoming with that right now because
it's not bad enough yet.
well, not only that, but technically it's illegal to use bioweapons or
Yes,
have them
or
in
to even
general.
have them. Yes.
So the United States, let's be honest, it's where this probably came from. The United States has it. This bioweapon, they have a, vaccine or something for it as well, and it was stolen from us, and we know it was stolen from us,
Well,
but we're not going to exactly
The
admit.
evidence looks like it's Canadian at this point. But,
well, 6 1 half dozen the other.
I mean, it's all the same military-industrial complex. Let's be honest.
Yeah, they're they use our contractors as well, so
yeah.
it's the same thing. But it was stolen from the West. The West has it. The West isn't even supposed to have it, so we can't really say, "Oh yeah, you stole that from us. Here's the vaccine." We got to pretend, "Oh, we're working on it.
Yes.
We're working on it."
And then the Chinese can't
Wink,
say we
wink.
stole it because then the Chinese are admitting to stealing
and
secrets,
also having
military
bioweapons
secrets
as
from
well.
the West and actively pursuing stealing bioweapons.
Yeah.
So they can't say it.
Yeah.
So nobody's saying anything. And like you said, we're just, oh yeah, we're working on a vaccine. And they're probably, honestly, I hate to say this because it's very cruel, but they're probably letting China stew in it a little bit.
I'm sure.
Because you stole it from us. We don't care. You screwed up with your containment. This is what happens. And then once it gets bad enough and once it hits U.S. shores bad enough, all of a sudden everybody's going to the doctor for a coronavirus vaccine.
Yeah. I think it could
That
very well
sounds
be
the
it.
most plausible thing.
Yep. That's very
And
plausible.
it would be a happy accident for, a lot of companies in the West. Because
Yeah, Pfizer is going to crank this thing out, or
Yeah,
Bayer, or
and then not
something.
only that is you got China by the balls now.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have to crank up to production, and they're going to make what you tell them to make for the price you tell them to make it because they've fallen so far behind, and you lessen their influence in the world. It's kind of a win-win to let it kind of go on a little. Now
Not
this
a-
is all conspiracy theory.
Yeah,
stuff,
we're getting
but-
a little off into speculative territory, but no, I think it's close enough to on point to be pretty much there. I'm just hoping, fingers crossed, knock on wood product of some kind. I'm just really hoping that there's just enough people in China realize how shittily their government's handled this that they change things.
Yeah.
That is my hope and dream right there, is
Yeah.
that China says, wow, you guys fucked up. Fuck you, Communist Party. Fuck you, Chinese government. We're changing shit now.
Yeah, and
I hope to God that does. Because if it does, I'm moving back instantly.
it's one thing I particularly like about America and American attitudes, and it is starting to change with younger people, and that is alarming to me. But American attitudes, whether it be left, right, or center, Americans don't put up with horse shit like that.
No.
They will sit there and espouse all these authoritarian things, but when they see it affect their lives and they see it affect their buying power, they change it real quick. Because Americans get pissed and they're like, oh, if I can't have my luck, because they're used to being so free, especially economically, that they just don't put up with stuff like
Yeah.
that. An American isn't going to sit at home and just go, oh, well, everything's fine. The government's handling it. No, the Americans will be pissed off and freaking out on social media. The news media will be freaking out. I would like to see a little bit of that in China, is that they're not going to put up with that.
Yeah.
But that is the one good thing that I like about America. That's the main of the American people. The main thing I really like about the American people is they don't put up with that crap. And I'd like to see that more worldwide.
Yeah.
And Europeans too. Europeans don't put up with that crap. They wouldn't just sit at home and say, "Oh, the government's handling it. Just hush, hush, be quiet, and sit in your house." No,
They would demand answers.
they demand answers.
Like, what the
Yeah.
fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing to fix this? Like, be specific, because otherwise we're going to come burn your house down.
That's what alarms me about younger people. They're losing that attitude because you've been a lot of different places in the world. I've been a lot of different places in the world. You see that countries that have that attitude tend to be less free. They tend to be less economically prosperous, although not always, because China is becoming very economically prosperous. But that attitude, it takes freedom away. Not demanding answers, not demanding change, not demanding what happened here. Because every country that I've been to that has very authoritarian governments, people are like you were describing the Chinese people. They just sit and they shut up and they deal with it. And I'd like to see that all over the world where people don't.
Yeah, you're seeing it in Wuhan because it reached such a fever pitch there that people in Wuhan said, "Okay, this is fucked." They hit their breaking point. It takes the thing is within those systems, everybody will eventually do that. You just have to get it that bad.
Yeah.
But the rest of China has not really been like they've been hit by it, but they've not been ravished by it.
Yeah.
Whereas Wuhan was just fucking decimated.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. Some of the people in Wuhan have taken to social media, and I watched a video of one lady recently. I'll try to throw it in this video. But yeah, she was just going off. She's like, fuck the Chinese Communist Party. I stand by independence. She's like, at this point, I stand by independence for Hong Kong and Taiwan and Tibet. She's like fucking pissed.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's railing against the fucking the Central Planning Committee there in Wuhan.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow.
Because as much as the CDC is screwed up and as much as the American government's screwed up, I think it would be handled far better here.
I would like to think so, but I also don't trust the CDC because a lot of what they've been doing and saying has not been in line with other reports of this virus. Like, I would say South Korea has been very forthcoming with their information. Singapore's been very forthcoming with their information. Taiwan's been pretty good with it as well. Japan is not bad with it, but they're starting to get freaked out. Whereas the U.S., our CDC has just been kind of shitty about it. And they're like seemingly pushing more the economic impact or trying to mitigate the economic impact of this versus the public health aspect of it. And that's got me a little like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Where some of these other countries have been handling it a little bit better.
Which, these kind of viruses, basically, we just have to figure out the environmental equilibrium if it takes vaccines. Because, I mean, SARS is still out there. It's not like it just disappeared.
No.
It's just the infection rate is low. And, that kind of thing. It's not an outbreak. And we've successfully managed that with the flu. Like, I personally don't get the flu vaccine, and I had the flu 3 weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago. So, it's more about managing it. It's not about, like, there's never going to be an eradication. This genie's out of the bottle.
Yeah.
It's going to be out there. But we have to have systems in place to mitigate the amount of people getting it.
Yeah.
And the amount of deaths from it. Because it just like anything, just like how we kind of gotten with AIDS, where it's treatable. You can't cure it, but people live with it. It's going to be the same with like the coronavirus. It's like, okay, we're getting that death rate down to 0.5%. Okay, we're getting the transmission rate down. We found out because unfortunately with drugs, we don't have an antibiotic that, people talk about antivirals, but all antivirals are chemicals that make it hard for the virus to reproduce. It does not kill it like antibiotics kill bacteria. They prevent it. This just makes it a little harder for the virus to reproduce. And once the virus is at certain levels, even that, because the amount of chemicals you'd have to take in would kill you, it just doesn't work. So that's why you have to go that vaccine route somehow. We'll see if they get there.
Yeah, we'll see if they did. They didn't manage a successful vaccine with the coronavirus, or not the corona. Well, it was a coronavirus.
Yeah,
SARS.
Yeah, or MERS.
Or MERS. Yeah.
But both of them just naturally. And viruses tend to do this too. They tend to flare up and then kind of die down because obviously if a virus is too virulent and has too much of a death rate, like Ebola, it's actually not good for the virus because the virus wants to thrive in a large population. It wants to spread itself like all life does.
Yeah.
So if it's too deadly, it can't spread itself effectively. So that's why you see most of the time these type of viruses flare up and then it kind of just evens out to,
Which is probably why the happiest viruses are things like the common cold because it doesn't kill the host.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah, and that's why that's why the common cold is so common.
Yep.
Is because it's super successful. It doesn't kill the host. It's able to reproduce and able to spread to another host before the host kills it. And because it's like somebody said about cancer. Cancer never wins. When people say, "Oh, cancer won," well, no, it didn't. It killed the host, and now it cannot live anymore. So the same with viruses. They always lose the game. It's just you got to spread to somebody else when you're a virus to win the game, and that's where the common cold wins the game. So that tends to be what happens, and that's why Ebola. I've always been skeptical of Ebola being this giant breakout because it kills too quickly and too effectively.
Yeah, that's it. I definitely don't want to catch it.
No, that is a nightmare.
Because then you're puking and shitting and just like dying.
Oh, you're bleeding out of your pores, and it just liquefies your insides. Yeah. I mean, it makes the coronavirus look like the common cold. You know, I mean, you'd much rather have the coronavirus than Ebola.
Yeah.
And sometimes the survivors of Ebola are just screwed up because it screwed up their internal organs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about some crazy viruses. Those, Marburg, Ebola. There's several of the hemorrhagic fevers. But once again, they're never going to be that huge of a concern because they just kill too quickly.
Yeah, it's like, malaria or Ebola. Please give me malaria.
Yeah, yeah. And in the new globalized culture, we're going to start seeing this more and more.
Oh, yeah.
This is not going to end at the coronavirus. This is going to be worldwide outbreaks of, and I'm sure we're already seeing it. I'm sure the CDC and all these other agencies are aware that we're seeing, probably common cold, adenovirus, things like that aren't particularly dangerous, breaking out all over the world because the massive amounts of population, the massive amounts of travel. I mean, heck, I was sick for an entire month this year, and I blame it on where I work. I'm around a lot of tourists, a lot of people from overseas, and, working in a hotel, I was just sick with different things for a month, capped off by the flu. And I have no illusions that was exacerbated by the amount of people I'm around from different areas of the country and the globe.
Yeah.
And so we're just going to see it more and more.
Unfortunately. So, anything else you want to talk about today?
No. Luckily, not that much going on in the news cycle. So just the Democrats being stupid, and we've already covered that one.
Yeah. So, good times.
Yeah.
All right, well, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's program. If you did, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and all that stuff. Maybe share it with your friends. Like I said, hopefully we'll be changing platforms soon and pushing YouTube to like the relegated dustbin, but still post. And then hopefully we can get away from doing videos too. Unless we do like special.
And I was going to say, save the YouTube we'll post up on YouTube anyway, just with the logo.
I think we're going to start doing that.
Save up those video podcasts for when we're doing something fun.
Yeah. Yeah, because this is with video equipment acting up, and that's not fun.
And it makes it where we can record anywhere we like.
Yeah, we don't necessarily have to do it down here. We can go upstairs and do it up there, and your brother can watch TV and maybe shout something at us every once in a while.
Yeah.
Because I think it'd be fun to get him on here. He won't do it. He might do it if there's no video, actually.
Yeah, I think he might if there's no video. Yeah.
Yeah. And we just call him something else.
Yeah.
Like Mikey or something.
Yeah.
So, because he's a little paranoid about that. But yeah, I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, I think we could give him a little lav mic because I think with our recorder here, we're going to get, I know we tried that earlier, but we didn't have this recorder, so our quality was off, but now I think we got the Tascam. I think the lav mic would work.
Yeah, I think it would too. Yeah. So we can do that. Have to make sure to bring those with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, or hell, I can just get another one of these.
Yeah. And we can, if we're not doing a video, we can do once the weather gets a little better, sitting out on the porch, having a few beers show.
Yeah, we could do that too.
And just record 4 or 5 hours of hanging out and edit it down to an hour.
Yeah, or just record 4 to 5 hours of it and then take a month off.
Yeah, that's true. That's true too. Yeah.
Because that would work too. Just be like, I'll just out here to shoot the shit,
Yeah.
Probably mess with some of the knobs to try to keep as many bird chirps out of it as I can.
Yeah. When the weather gets nice, that's what everybody comments when I'm on my phone outside of my headphones. They're like, "Oh, I can tell you're outside because the bird chirps. They really show up."
But that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us today. You guys have yourselves a good one. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.